The year was 1997. Ultima 9 was teasing us with what would be a great disappointment, but at the time seemed to be one of the greatest video games ever made, and 22 people from various studios in Germany got together to make their own video game, one inspired by one of the best movies ever made, John Carpenter's Escape from New York. With such a source of inspiration, you bet that the game was gonna be a fantasy role-playing game. That's how Gothic started. It started with a few people wanting to make high-quality video games. Games that not only looked good, which Gothic did look good, I promise you, it looked good. It looked amazing when it came out. It looked fantastic in 2003. It didn't look too shabby in 2004 either, especially when you take into account the night sky, the flashes of lightning on the dome, the forests and how thick they are and how leaves would sometimes glide down, giving a sense that yes, you are truly in a forest, not in an empty field with two trees like in every other game ever made in the history of mankind. And those people that wanted to make this game, Gothic, set out to do so with a few objectives. They wanted to make a game that made sense, one that would give you immersion through the fact that there was very little in the game that would actually take you out of the fantasy. Now, if you're a Diablo 3 player, you're probably wondering, wait, game developers can do that? And yes, they can. For you see, initially Gothic had almost no interface, not even statistics. They added that later because it's easier to understand a few things if you have statistics like what damage your weapon does. Though, to be fair, a rusty weapon sort of makes sense to not be as good as a brand new gigantic battle axe that you wield after 50 hours of gameplay when you've trained your combat at a point where no trainer in the game can actually teach you more. That immersion came from stuff like this. It came from the game not having, well, it did have skill points. It was an RPG, it did have skill points, but you didn't put them into anything. You went to people and they would teach you, and they would tell you how to fight, and wouldn't you know it, the way you swung your weapon changed. The way you sneaked changed. The way you jumped. You could roll later. You had different abilities that you could see. This game was natural. It had that feeling of everything is where it should be, where it could be in reality. And it's not just about what the player could learn, what the character could do. It was about everything. Absolutely everything. When I first played Gothic, I was astonished by what I saw. Granted, it was one of the first 3D RPGs I ever played, but still, I was astonished by what I saw. Even today, even compared with things like Skyrim, the world of Gothic is still one of the greatest ever made. I don't mean say this through lore, story, or location, no. True, simple design, which is kind of ironic because the design of Gothic is not simple. The people at Piranha Bytes for a long time were the best level designers of open world games in existence. Because when they made a world map, they didn't just make an empty field and dotted some towns on it and call it a day. No. They made it on so many levels that even to this day, there may still be stuff I haven't found. And not because the game is so vast, I mean it's so huge that I would have to walk days and days to find something. No, the game is about 1 kilometer in diameter, so that would make it, I don't know, maybe 2 square kilometers, something, or 2 or 3 square kilometers. That's about it, I guess. It's not huge compared to the RPGs we have now. It isn't the size of The Witcher 3, it's not the size of Skyrim, it wasn't the size of Morrowind, but it did have a surprisingly high amount of content in that world because everything was not exactly stratified, but it was compacted in such a way, it was wrapped together, it was assembled in such a way that it did not waste space. Verticality was something that the game used to its advantage. You could go up the ridges villages, up the hills, you would find treasures, you would find enemies, you would find ruins, you would find all sorts of stuff. You would find tunnels that led you just about halfway around the map. Well, not exactly halfway, but still a lot of way around the map. And the thing that really stuck with me was how this game used slopes. I'm not joking. Look at just about every RPG you know and look exactly how sloped the pathways are. Like, not the sheer mountain that they just randomly generate. No, the paths, the places you walk through, they're generally very, very straight. They're not inclined in such a way that would almost make you feel dizzy. Now, how traversable those would be in real life, that's a discussion for another day. But it gave Gothic a sense of things go up in this game, things go down, things go under, things go through, and that made everything feel like it was an actual place that was carved out by people, that grew naturally, that was molded, that existed. And that's just at a level of geology. The creatures in it were amazing. This was a game where very few creatures, like maybe the orcs because they're assholes, would actually try to kill you on sight. The rest of them, they were just creatures. Yeah, one of them was a dinosaur chicken, but still, they were just creatures in a forest minding their own business. They weren't there to kill you, they were there to live. They would sleep at night, they would go around, I believe, collecting food, but you didn't actually see them collect food. You would see them do animations as if they were eating, but still, they didn't collect food. And they wouldn't just attack you on sight, they would threaten you. They would give signals saying, yeah, this is my turf, back off, buddy, or I'm gonna bite your head off. And if you insisted, they would. Trust me, you haven't lived until you've been chased round the map. Well, not round the map, because they would eventually decide, okay, we've chased them off, let's go back. By giant reptile chickens! There were also kind of tiny T-Rexes, well, not tiny, they were still about as big as you, that thankfully couldn't climb up walls and trees. The orcs couldn't climb up trees too, which was nice because due to some glitches in the game, you could climb up, well, you could fall off things and trees. I'm not ashamed to say that I abused a lot of physics glitches in this game, like things that would let me bypass certain areas that would otherwise be locked, things that would let me fall from great heights without dying, because this was something that I didn't see in an RPG up until then. This was something new, this was a new dimension I could play with, and Gothic made sure you had a lot of options to do so. A lot of opportunities that sort of don't really show up in a lot of newer games, like Skyrim for example, or even The Witcher. Like The Witcher 3 doesn't really have that much verticality to it. There's very rare instances of it. And what made this game feel so natural wasn't just the geology and the fauna. The flora, I've said already, you had forests that just felt like forests. It was also the fact that it was governed by laws, like social laws that affected everyone. This is something you don't see in a lot of games, like tons of games. Laws only apply to you as the player character. If an NPC breaks the law doesn't actually apply to that character. In this one it does. In this one, everyone is equal. Well, everyone that paid their dues and everyone that's in good with the guards in certain areas is equal. If you draw your sword, everyone else will tell you to stop doing that and they'll draw their swords as well. They'll start casting spells if you don't stop. If you take someone's food from their home, they will get mad and they will start punching you. Now, if the guards get involved because, that guy paid them something, they may shoot you with arrows, but they won't kill you. Because theft isn't punishable by that. No. They'll just knock you out, let you recover on your own, and rob you blind. See, this is one of those games where robbers, or guards in this case, would actually rob you, which is something you don't see in games, like at all. Yeah, you maybe do in Deus Ex Mankind Divided, where if you break the law, you wake up not dead and minus some cash, but still, it wasn't anywhere near as complex as this game was. And every character you would find in the game world didn't just stand there and wait for you to interact them. No, they had stuff to do. This was Ultima level of NPC simulation. They would go to bed, they would make food, they would eat, They would stand by a campfire at night and listen to stories and talk to each other over roast boar. They would work on their houses, they would patrol, they would not stand still in the rain with a torch at night, waiting for someone to talk to them like those three idiots in Balmora and Morrowind. You know the ones I'm talking about, right? They were always there, like morons. But not here, and mind you, this game was released a long time, like 2 years or 3 years before Morrowind. It's not like they didn't have time to improve their Radiant AI. Well, to be fair, Oblivion had the Radiant AI and it wasn't that radiant either. Now, there are some things that people may have against Gothic. I mean, apart from the fact that it sort of looks a bit old right now. It did have a control that didn't gel that well with people. I, for one, I got used to it because at some certain level it made sense. You see, every action you had to do by pressing 2 buttons. You had to press click or control and forward. For some time that didn't make sense, but I was opening a crate one day and I realized, yeah, this does make sense. By clicking, I'm putting my hands on the crate. By pressing W, I'm lifting the lid. Suddenly, Gothic's control system made sense. Now, it took me even longer to figure out the combat and how the things swung and you could chain them together. But still, it's an interesting approach to controls, which they relaxed it a bit in the sequels. A bit too much in the third one, kinda too much. And while it may take you some time to get used to it, it is an okay control system for Gothic 1. You know what, I get a feeling I haven't talked at all about the story. Well, this is the part that actually makes this game shine. I mean, apart from everything else in it. You're not the hero. You're not the messiah foretold by legend. You're not the avatar. You're just some common criminal, some common thug that gets thrown into a prison colony, guarded by a shield that would let things go in and would let things go out. Only problem is the things that go out end up being very dead very quickly the moment they get out. It's a good prison, and when you're thrown into it, a mage comes to you and say, hey you, yeah, you with a stupid face, take this leather, give it to the fire mages, they'll give you some reward. And then they just throw you in there. And from that moment, you are everyone's bitch. Like everyone's absolute bitch. The first thing that happens to you is that you get punched in the face. And that's one of the least worst things that happens to you in the game. But you do meet some friends, you do meet some people that aren't out to kill you or rob you. They are serving their own interest, where they're helping you so you would help them or so you would join their faction, because there are 3 factions. There was the old camp, which is made up of the most, well, richest people in the prison colony, the ones that deal directly with the king outside that wants the magic ore in the colony to fight the orcs, led by some guy named Gomez. There is a new camp with some water mages that want to blow up the barrier using some ore, and there's the swamp colony, filled with a bunch of cultists that smoke weed all day. You can smoke weed too, it actually gives you magic points. There was supposed to be a 4th colony, but they kind of axed it. There was also supposed to be an assassin faction, but they were replaced with the rogues and they didn't really do that much for the story. The story is, of course, you have to deliver that map and then things happen. I won't go into details, I don't want to give you any spoilers, but it's a 15-year-old game. You end up actually becoming a hero, but mostly after a really long time and only because everyone else is either an asshole, dead, or not as good as you've become. The evolution from being everyone's bitch to being a hero is actually quite nicely done in this game. Because when you start out, you cannot fight to save your life. But if you learn, like if you actually go to people and they tell you, hey, swing your sword this way, and that will reflect on how you actually swing the sword, you will eventually become a good fighter. You will become a mage, though magic is kind of difficult to use in combat in this game, though it's powerful. You will become, near the end, almost an unstoppable force compared to what everyone in the colony can actually do. So it makes sense that you would be the hero because you become the most badass OG in the place. Now, the story itself isn't something I'd say deserves some sort of award. The characters aren't really that interesting either, but how they all combine with this world, with this organic world, with this world that seems so alive, that's what makes this special. There's no trickery to it. There's no magic teleportation where a character vanishes from one place and shows up in another, or where some character is just immune and immortal and you can't kill him. You can kill everyone. Like from the get-go, if you have a big enough sword, if you cheat yourself a big enough sword, you can kill everyone and the game doesn't care. The game will go on. The game will make sure things get done. Though actually, I can't really remember if you could or couldn't kill Xardas. Also, yeah, there is magical teleportation. There are runes for that you can use. But up until you become the best hero of them all, you are everyone's bitch. Like, the game has a high difficulty level, and you cannot set a different one. It's hard from the get-go and will get easier the more you play it, and the more you learn how to play it. Especially if you're in the habit of abusing certain physics bugs that let you fall from great heights, when you're being chased by enemies that may actually take damage when they fall, and you can then kill them easier. Now, I'm not one to over-exaggerate, but this game saved action RPGs. Before it, we had Ultima 9, which was crap. Some people will still defend it. I know some of them personally. They are wrong. Ultima 9 was horrible. It killed the series. It sort of gave people no hope of the genre doing something meaningful, and then Gothic came. Gothic came and saved us. Gothic came and gave us what Ultima 9 should have been. A new golden standard for the genre, for gaming itself, for design, for atmosphere, for everything. Maybe not story, but still for everything. And you can see bits of it in most games today. Some would say you could trace Dark Souls back to Gothic, and you probably could. Well, via Severance to Blade of Darkness, but you probably could. So I encourage you to play it. You'll find it on GOG for about €9. Yeah, it may not be as pretty now as it was back then. It may be a bit clunky, and for some reason I get frame rate drops on a machine that would just run every game made before 2004 with like no problems, and actually maybe 4 of them at once with no problem. But even so, this is something you have to experience. This is something you have to understand. This is a game that at some point gives you a quest to give some water to a bunch of field workers. And it doesn't do so you would have a quest to do X things to get a reward. No, it does so because you'll get to talk to those people. They will let you in on a couple of secrets about the area, about not secrets necessarily, but information, things that may be useful to you. You'll even find a trainer that way. This game is well thought out. Like, it was made with a purpose. Everything in it was made with purpose, which is again something you cannot say about a lot of modern games, where stuff is just put in there because it has to fill a quota. Piranha Bytes are masters at making video games, especially action RPGs. Granted, they seem to have stopped doing that since Risen 2. I haven't played Risen 3. I took one look at Patty and decided that I don't know, maybe they're compensating for the fact that in Gothic 1 they couldn't have a lot of female characters because they made some kind of high poly models for the female characters, so they couldn't have them everywhere, so they only had a few of them, and they didn't really have dialogue that much. It was kind of a sausage fest, but still, they're making a new game now called Alex, which is their first non-medieval one. It's set in the future, a post-apocalyptic-ish techno-magico future with swords and jetpacks. And they're kind of using the same lighting engine as in Risen 2, which was a horrible lighting engine. But still, Piranha Bytes deserve credit where credit is due. They constructed one of the best video game series ever made, Gothic. Gothic 1 and 2 are peerless. They are standards of gold and platinum that people must aspire to. We'll ignore Gothic 3 because it was a Jowood thing and Jowood does stupid stuff, well did until it died. And they also made Risen 1, which is again was more in the vein of Gothic 1, and it was very well done. And that would be it for this show. I just wish I had some better video footage for you on the background. I did have some for an older show I did, but that was 5 years ago, so video quality wouldn't be really up to snuff for today's standards. You also get to turn into a bug in this game, which is nice. You can also turn to raptors and chickens, and you get to chase people around, armed, see them running for their lives, and then plunging off cliffs. Play Gothic. You'll not regret it. No one that played it has. If you enjoyed this show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Or, if you thought it was horrible, then share it with your enemies and make them suffer. We shall be your weapon of vengeance. But if you liked what you saw, you could, I don't know, maybe donate, because basically YouTube is horrible at revenue, by using the link in the description, or just buy my book. It's a fantasy book about, well, a lot of stuff. I guarantee it won't suck, and if it does suck, you can find me here and complain about it.